Hi, my name is Ken from the Netbeans documentation team, and in this screencast I will demonstrate how you can use Netbeans IDE when developing HTML5 applications. In another screencast, I introduced the new HTML5 project type and demonstrated how to use the CSS editor in combination with the Netbeans plugin for Chrome to quickly style an application. In this screencast, I will demonstrate how to use the JavaScript editor and debugger when working with JavaScript files and some of the code completion available in the JavaScript editor. I will also show how the IDE can help you in creating an HTML5 client for a RESTful web service. In the demo application that I am using, you can see that the opening paragraph on the index page is in Dutch, but I want the text to display in English. If I look at the HTML file for the index page, I can see that the contents of the paragraph are set dynamically using JavaScript in a file named loadwelcome.js. I will use the JavaScript debugger to debug the JavaScript file to see why the English version is not loading. In the editor at the top of the file, I can see the script element that loads the file. I control-click the JavaScript file name to open the file in the editor. In the JavaScript file, I can see that on line 9 there is some code that determines the language. I set a breakpoint at the line by clicking in the left margin of the editor. And now I reload the page in the browser, and I see that part of the page renders and that the breakpoint is hit before the content of the top paragraph is loaded. I can now step into the getLanguage function to see why the English text is not displaying in the browser. I can place the cursor over the variables in the editor, and the values for each variable is displayed in the tooltip. I can also open the variables window to view the values. Looking at the values for the variables, it looks like I will not be able to use this function in getTheBrowserLanguage, and that the page will continue to display the language set in the getWelcome method. I will step out of the method and stop debugging the file. I will try to replace the getLanguage function with something different. I created a JavaScript code template earlier with a different script, so I will delete the old function and type in the abbreviation for the other script and hit the Tab key. I save the file and the page automatically reloads in the browser. When the breakpoint is hit in the debugger, I step into the new method and I can see in the tooltip that the lang variable is now set to English. When I step out of the method and let the page finish loading, I see that the top paragraph is now in English. There are some other scripts in the application that I also want to look at. I disable the select mode of the plugin and click Learn More in the browser to go to the About page. The About page has a few different examples of using JavaScript. The bottom section has some examples that use jQuery scripts with some examples of jQuery animation. I want to add an alert message to one of the animations, so I will need to make some more changes to the JavaScript. In the IDE, I open the About HTML file in the editor, locate the link to the About.js JavaScript file, and control-click the file name to open the file in the editor. The syntax color coding for the JavaScript code is similar to other languages in the IDE. If I want, I can change the color scheme and formatting for just JavaScript files by going to the Options window and selecting JavaScript as the language. There are several functions in the JavaScript file, and I scroll down to the method for the jQuery animation. The IDE recognizes jQuery code and provides code completion for jQuery. When I type JQ, the editor expands it to jQuery when I hit Control Space. When I hit Control Space between the parentheses, the editor displays a list of div tags. I select the animation div element and start typing and use the code completion to add an alert message in the double-click method. I now right-click the About HTML file in the Projects window and choose Run File in the pop-up menu. The browser opens to the About page, and now when I double-click the box, the browser opens an alert box with my message. So far, I have used the editor to modify some JavaScript animations and CSS styling rules that are typical when developing basic HTML5 applications, but basically static content. The power of using HTML5 display tools on the client side becomes clear when you start interacting with web services. Next, I will show a couple different ways that you can work with web services and display information in an HTML5 application. The easiest way is probably to use jQuery to display data from a web service. At the top of the About.js JavaScript file, there is a function loadReset, which loads data from the REST demo web service that I have running on my local machine. The script grabs the data and a table is generated dynamically. To see how it works, I click Load Reset Data in the browser to display the data from the service and click on a company name to display the details. In the about.html file, there is a simple REST details element for the table where the ID attribute is set for each cell. When I turn on the select mode in the browser and select a cell, the generated element is highlighted in the DOM tree in the Navigator window. The IDE displays the properties of the highlighted element in the CSS Styles window. I can see the style rules that apply to elements in the REST Details div element. I click on a property in the CSS Styles window to open the rules editor and modify the style rules. If I change the font size, the new rule is automatically applied to the page. There's no need to manually redeploy or reload the page. The About page also loads a third-party REST service. The HTML code was for a login screen, but here it's been modified to display information from Twitter. The pop-up shows an image and username that are loaded from the Twitter service. I can create my pop-up because I could call the service and see the data available. By using the debugger, I can see the results of calling the service. When I place a breakpoint in the function and click the button in the web page, the script gets the data and then hits my breakpoint. When the breakpoint is hit, I can open the variables window and see the details. I expand the results node and an object node to see details like name and type. By seeing the actual variable values in the debugger, I can decide which variables I want to display and how they should be formatted. I now stop the debugger and remove the breakpoint. I will now demonstrate one more way the IDE can help you create a dynamic HTML5 client for a RESTful web service. Because I have the sources for a RESTful web service as a Netbeans project, I can use the IDE to quickly generate a RESTful JavaScript client in the HTML5 application. After the IDE generates the client, I can then go in and modify the client as I want. To generate the client, I open the New File wizard and select RESTful JavaScript Client in the HTML JavaScript category. I will keep the default name and location and specify the location of the resources for my REST project, which is the REST demo project that I have opened in the IDE. I choose the Table Sorter UI so that the wizard will generate a table in a web page for displaying the data. This client will use the backbone JavaScript library, which I already added to the project when I created it, but if the library was missing, the IDE would have prompted me to add it. I will use the default HTML file name and click Finish in the wizard. The IDE generates a JavaScript file for the client and an HTML file that has templates that are used for displaying the data. I now right-click the new HTML file and select Run File in the pop-up menu to open the generated table in the browser. I hope this screencast has helped demonstrate some of the ways that Netbeans IDE can help when developing HTML5 applications. Thanks for watching.